we go. So what's cool is we'll see if anybody else is here.
Okay.
And then we can see when they put questions in here. Welcome, Sally. I'm glad you could join us. Welcome, Erin. So if you've never done a Zoom Live Q&A, there's a Q&A bubble down there. You can put your questions in that we can answer, or you can also chat to the group. But if you have a specific question, you can put it in there. And we're going to wait just a few more minutes and get started. But thank you so much for joining us today. This is Mikayla, the illustrator. She is amazing, and she's also one of my best friends. And I'm Ginger, and I'm the author of my Patchwork Family. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started because we are recording this. So if anyone jumps on, they can join in. But just a little background. So our book, My Patchwork Family, has been out since December. And so we wanted to have a time for Q&A where we could answer any questions you guys might have for us. We have some that have come in already, so we're going to start with those, but feel free to add as we go any questions you might have. You want to add anything, Mikayla?
Nope, I think that sounds good.
Okay, so one of the first questions that we got on the comments of this was for Mikayla, and it was, how many books have you illustrated, and are you planning to do more?
So this was my first book. I've always really been into art and drawing and painting and all those kinds of things. And Ginger had kind of known that about me for a while. And then when she wrote this awesome book, she's like, hey, what do you think about illustrating it? And so I was like, man, I don't know. I've never thought about doing anything like that before, but it was a really fun process. So I've only done one book, but Ginger has another book in the works that she's asked me to illustrate, so I'm hoping it'll be too soon.
Yes. Are you open to other authors?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I've really enjoyed doing it, and it works really well with my schedule, homeschooling my kids, and just being able to do it whenever, I have a few seconds to pick up and draw and paint and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been really good.
Going along with that, another question that people had was about how many hours did it take for you to illustrate My Patchwork
Family? Man, so when I saw that question come in, I was like trying to add up all of the hours, and I couldn't decide how many I actually did. But it was just one of those things where, like I said, I homeschool my kids and we're really involved at church and stuff. And so any minute, like I had to work on it, whether, sometimes I would bring it to the park and just like work on sketches while my kids played, or, up late at night, listening to music and just trying to get in some time to work on it. So I don't really have a number, I guess. But how many months do you think I worked on it for?
We started it right during spring break last year.
Yeah. Yeah, right around this time, yes.
Now I'm trying to think of when we started our Kickstarter. It was before my birthday. So okay. I think we probably finished in October or August.
So it was a lot of months, but yeah, it was really, really fun. And like Ginger was awesome to work with, where she didn't have like all these crazy deadlines. So she just kind of let me go at my own pace, which was perfect and made it way more enjoyable for me. So, okay, Ginger, I have a question for you. Yes. Is this your first book, and are you planning to write any more?
This is my first actual book. When I saw that question, I was like, do you count the books in middle school where you write with your friends during recess? Because I definitely did a lot of those. Jessica and Becky and I on recess, we wrote some pretty good books. But this is the first one that I've actually had published and put out there. And I am planning to write more. My second book in the Patchwork Family series is edited. We are starting the illustration process, but I'm not in a huge hurry. So we're kind of taking it slow. And I'm not sure how many more I'm going to write. We're just going to kind of see if I'm inspired. Like, that's my big thing, is like, I have to feel like it's a story and a worth sharing about our family. All of my kids. So the first one was written from Dominic, my oldest, perspective. And then the second one, it's written from her perspective on the second one. So all my kids are like, "You gonna do one for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, if we can find like a good storyline." So we'll see how many we end up actually having. All right, so here's another question for Mikayla. Did it help knowing the family that you were illustrating?
Yes, I think it definitely helped to inspire me and just kind of know. It was fun, like, as I would do a page for each of the kids, and then I would see them, and they'd be like, "Oh, that was so fun! Like, I really liked how you did this." And so I kind of knew their personalities and things they liked, and like I was able to kind of capture who they were as individuals and specific things that they really enjoy doing. And so I really liked that. And it just made it more meaningful, I think, to me, just knowing your family and everything that you guys have been through. And it just was really special to get to know you beforehand and also be able to do this at the same time. It was a really cool thing.
One thing a lot of people don't know is that Mikayla actually took a lot of the pictures that she used for the illustration. So it's pretty amazing. So she like did a bunch of our photography and then she painted based on that. So she really was a whole part of all of that, which was amazing.
Okay, Ginger, here's another question for you. Where did the idea from this book come from? And how long did the book take to write and publish?
So it actually started at first in a like voiceover PowerPoint where I took pictures of all of us and talked about how we were like a patchwork family.
I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah, and so it was right after my oldest daughter that we adopted came to live with us. We wanted to do something she felt included and a part of the family, and so we did pictures and I did the PowerPoint with the voiceover. And after that, I was like, oh, I should really write this down. And it was originally just supposed to be for family. So it depends if you count that part. It was like 3 years long. But once I actually decided this was a story I wanted to share with others and I wanted to, get out there, I would say it probably took about a year from really being serious and then getting it edited, getting it read by friends and, other people I didn't know. And then starting to look at illustrations and then doing the Kickstarter and then finally getting the book. It was probably about a year total from beginning to end. Okay. So here is a question for Mikayla. In what other ways are you using your art degree right now?
So when I went to college and I graduated my art degree, I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? Like, my parents were like, got this art degree, but really God has allowed me to use it in a bunch of different ways. Like Ginger said, I do photography. And so that's a good way that I'm able to supplement our income. And it's just something I really enjoy doing for friends and family and things like that. And then I also am able to do some graphic design stuff. And so with our church, there's always, t-shirts to be made or website stuff or whatever it is. I'm able to do like logos or things like that. And it's really nice because I really enjoy doing stuff like that. And so it's nice to be able to use that to bless other people too.
It's so humble that I did not even realize she was doing most of the stuff until like years later. Because I was always like, man, whoever's doing these brochures, and they were rocking it out. And like, I didn't even realize how amazing of an artist she was until one day, I think I was in your house and I commented on a painting. You were like, oh yeah, I did that. And I was like, you did that? And so I'm so glad I did because I would have never thought of you to illustrate. Yeah. Because she doesn't necessarily really like advertise or make a big deal about it. She just kind of like is totally okay just being like under the radar, doing all this amazing cool stuff. So, and then going along with that, so what are some other hobbies and activities you enjoy? That's another question I had.
So my husband, who's also watching, has been really into pickleball, and so that was something that like kind of consumed his like spare time. And I was like, well, I'm either not going to see him as much, or I'm going to start playing pickleball. And so I'm not a pro and not ever going to be as good as him, but I really enjoy playing pickleball with him. It's something, we're both really competitive people, and so it's been fun. And a lot of times the courts are like by a park, so our kids will come out and play and hang out. So pickleball has been one of my biggest hobbies over the last year, as well as playing board games. Really anything that I can win at, I enjoy doing. I'm just really competitive. So board games, sports, anything like that. Yeah. Okay, Ginger. Why did you self-publish, and what was that like?
Yeah, so I actually sent my book off before we did the illustrations and stuff kind of early on to some publishers just to see if there would be any interest, if anybody would want to publish it. And I never heard back from any of them. I think I sent it to like 20, 25 different places. And so that was a little bit like disheartening. And for a while, I thought maybe that meant my book wasn't that good. And so I shouldn't even do it. But then I got into some amazing Facebook groups about, independent writers and illustrators, and they really helped me see just the amazing benefit of self-publishing and what that could look like. And just that way you have a little bit more control of it, because that way I could pick my illustrator and I got to have my friend illustrate it, where if I got it published by a big company, I wouldn't be able to pick an illustrator. They would have just assigned someone. It wouldn't have meant the same thing. And so it definitely was a bit of a leap of faith, self-publishing, because I had to find a way to pay for everything on my own. There was no big company that was going to pay for it. And so thankfully my husband is amazingly supportive, and he was like, let's figure out a way to do it. And he helped me, and I had a lot of friends help me do a Kickstarter so that I could actually afford to get a bulk print, which is what I wanted to get the quality I wanted. So I actually had to order 1,000 books at the beginning to get the price and the quality I wanted. And so that took a lot of me getting over the fear of, what if no one wants my book? Like, am I just going to be stuck with 1,000 books in my basement for the rest of my life, reminding me that this wasn't good? And so I had to get over that, and I had to trust my friends and my family that were like, no, you should do this. And so that was definitely an amazing thing. So
we have another question for you. It says, I heard you both talk about illustrations for book 2, but do you have any other goals as an author beyond book 2, or even different storylines for other children's books?
That's a good question. So one of my biggest goals is to just encourage and support foster and adoptive families. And I feel like the books are my way to kind of do that. And I've been blessed to be able to get on podcasts to talk about just my heart for foster care and adoption, and that's been amazing. As far as other storylines, I not on the top of my head, but I also am very much like, if I get a creative fun idea, I'll probably roll with it, because I've learned to just quit trying to make myself be in this box. And so if I think of another kids at book idea, I'll probably go for it. But there's nothing in the works besides just the second book in this series right now. So, and I'll have you illustrate it if I do another one too. All right, another one for Mikayla. What was your favorite part in the process, and what was your least favorite part? I'm assuming they're talking about the illustrating.
My favorite part was probably just whenever I would look at the next page I was going to illustrate, and then just kind of come up with what we were going to have it look like. And so usually I would text Ginger and be like, hey, what are you thinking for this page? And she'd be like, well, I was kind of thinking this, but she was really good about just being like, I trust you, whatever you think is going to look good. And so I really just liked coming up with it in my head and kind of envisioning what I thought would look best for the illustrations. And of course, painting was really fun. I just liked the beginning of each page. Like, it was something new and fresh, and like, you know, just a lot of creativity would go into that. My least favorite part was probably whenever I was done with all the illustrations and then I had to figure out how to scan them in and make them look similar in colors to what I had painted and kind of arrange them on the page. That was more just, it's not really a creative thing to do. It was just something that had to be done. But yeah, those were my least and favorite parts of the process.
I did love the fact that I could be like, on some of the pages, I think I was like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, you tell me.
But you also were really good about being like, this is what I'm envisioning. And I was like, yes, that's going to be awesome. Like, I can't wait to start drawing that. And yeah.
It was so nice to work with them because I could be like, and then not feel like
Yeah.
I had to like be careful of everything and how I worded it. So
Definitely.
So this question's for me actually, and it's, how did you and Dustin get into fostering, and are you still fostering? So that's awesome. I love telling this story. It's a long story though, so buckle up. I love the fact that when God called us to fostering, he actually called Dustin and I at different times, and so it kind of helped cement in our minds that this really was our calling, and we've been able to kind of lean on that when times get really tough. But I was at an ice cream social at our church. I was eating some, I believe it was chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. And one of the ladies from our church that they've actually adopted from overseas 4 times now, but they were in the process of adopting their third, was sharing their story and how God led them to their kids and adoption. And I was like mid-bite of ice cream, and all of a sudden I just knew that I was called to adopt, and it hit me out of nowhere. I wasn't looking for it. But I went home and I told Dustin, I was like, I think we're supposed to adopt. And he said, no, we're not. We're not supposed to. I don't think so at all. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I prayed and I said, okay, God, if you really are calling us to adopt, I want you to talk to Dustin and call him separately. I don't want to bring this up. I don't want to nag him. I don't want it to be where I'm dragging him into this. And so for about 2 months, it was still just so heavy on my heart, but Dustin wasn't saying anything and I wasn't bringing it up. And I just kept praying that if this was our calling, that God would talk to Dustin. And so I think it was probably 2 or 3 months later, I actually stayed home from church with a sinus infection, and Dustin and our 3 small kids went, and he came home and, plopped down on the bed, and he was like, yep, we're supposed to adopt. And it came like out of nowhere. And so I was like, okay, like, where did that come from?
That's so funny. I feel like he took all 3 little kids to church, and I mean, that's a lot of work. And then for him to be like, oh yeah, like now let's add another one.
And it was like so just not expected at all. And so he was actually at the time of finishing up his degree in engineering because he had gone back for a second degree. And so we did that last semester of his, and we really talked to all of our friends that have adopted in a bunch of different ways. There's so many amazing ways to adopt. There's overseas, there's infant adoption. There's just so many different ways. And so by the end of that semester, we both just really strongly felt like we were called to foster, with the possibility of adopting if the kiddos needed an adoptive family. Mm-hmm. And so we started that process, which it took probably another like 6 months from when we decided to actually getting licensed and, having our first placement. We actually are not currently fostering. Our oldest daughter that we've adopted has a little bit more trauma in her past that she's doing so much better, but we're still helping her kind of work through that. And we felt like we couldn't really invest in her the way we needed to and our other kids while continuing to foster. However, we did just apply to become exchange student parents. So I'm excited about that. So we're going to try something new. So yeah, so we're excited to continue to kind of grow our family, but a little bit different this time. So there's a question, I think, for both of us. How can people contact you about your book or foster care and adoption? So I have an email address with the book, and so you can email that one. And if it's for Mikayla, I can forward it to her. But it's just my patchwork family book selfpublish@gmail.com. And I would love to answer questions about the book, illustrations. If you're interested in foster care and you just want someone to like hear you out and answer you honestly and non-judgmentally, because I don't even know you, feel free to email me, because sometimes it's easier to not ask people that know you. Same thing with adoption. If you're looking into adoption, or if you have adopted, if you're struggling with maybe some of the trauma responses that your children have that have been adopted, I'm by no means an expert, but I can tell you what I've learned just from experience. And so that's another thing that I really love talking to people about, is how can we lovingly help these kids, through this trauma, in a way that, especially if you're Christian, a way that points them to God and to forgiveness and grace. I feel like that's really important in those situations. All right. So far, there's no more questions, so I'm just going to start asking you random questions.
Okay, great.
That way, maybe somebody will ask you a question.
Okay.
Okay, so you said you had kiddos.
Mm-hmm.
So how old are your kids?
So I have 3 kids. Asa is my oldest, and he is 7, going to be 8 in July. And Deacon is our middle child, and he is 6. And then Hattie is 4.
That's awesome. Yes. And you said you do homeschool them?
Yes.
The youngest one's still too young, or have you started?
She kind of will sit at the table with us a little bit. She mostly plays Barbies. But
I'm sure Cameron's so proud.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. What about you? Tell us. I mean, they kind of know how old your kids are kind of from the book, but it's been, a little while since all of that. So how old are your kids?
So I have 2 13-year-olds. They're not twins. They're just really close in age. So I have 2 13-year-olds, an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And so they keep me pretty busy, but they're a lot of fun too. So one thing I do like to tell people is, I was like, do you remember middle school drama? Yeah, I have 2 middle school girls that live with me all the time. They're actually pretty good, but every once in a while it's like, what are we doing? This is definitely middle school. Like, let's not do this anymore. So, but yeah, and I am a teacher, so I teach high school math, and so sometimes trying to balance that and make sure everyone's needs are met can definitely be a lot. But I'm thankful for an amazing husband that's supportive and so involved, and just friends too, friends that I can lean on. That's one thing. If any of you guys that are listening are thinking about doing foster care adoption, having I call them my village, having people that you can lean on and go to, that you can call literally in the middle of the night and just be like, I need you now. And knowing that you have friends that will come and do that is how you can get through some of those tough situations. So here's another question, if not asked already. Where and how did you 2 meet?
Oh, wow.
Was it Olive Garden?
Yes, it was Olive Garden.
Yes. So both of our husbands actually work at the church. My husband's the worship leader, and her husband's youth pastor.
Yeah. So we were in view of a call. One of our first times we came, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna take all the staff to Olive Garden." And me and my shy self, I was like, "Oh man, there's a lot of people here." And I just remember leaving that being like, "Ginger's so cool. Like, she's so funny." And I was like, "If we move here, I want to be with her."
That's super cool. You know what I knew? I knew she had her nose pierced, and that was a big deal, because at that time I did it, and I was like, wait, if she has her nose pierced, I should get my nose pierced. And she's one of the 2 people that inspired me to pierce my nose. Yeah. So I don't know if you ever knew that.
No, I didn't. I'm so honored.
I could do it too. So, yeah. No.
I feel like that about your tattoos, only I don't have it yet.
That's true.
I'm aspiring to some.
We'll definitely work on that. Yes. You were very pregnant with your second, right?
Yes. Yeah, so we had been interviewing in the fall, and Deacon was scheduled to be born mid-January. And so everything went really well in the process, and they were like, "Okay, we're ready for you to move out here." And they were wanting us to move before Christmas. And I was like, there's no way I could do that. And so we ended up coming in March. So it worked out really well. It was like about 6 weeks old, so yeah. But I feel like Ginger's always been one of my like favorite people in Mulvane, and she's just really awesome. So
I'm one of those people that like once I decide like we're friends, and you don't have a choice.
Yeah,
so like it's happening. Here we go. So no, and it's amazing because Mikayla knows my family so well because her husband is the youth pastor, and so like not only just me and my husband, like they really know my kids, which makes it amazing and so supportive. So let's see. So there's one more question for me. Where did the idea for this book come from? So as I mentioned, it started with a voiceover PowerPoint. I honestly cannot tell you where the thought of saying it was where our family was like a quilt came from. It was just like when I started trying to figure out what I wanted to say in this video, that's what came to mind, is that we're all a quilt. We come from different places, but together we make a beautiful tapestry is kind of how I worded it in the video that I made. But I don't know for sure is, sorry, one of our friends' legs are definitely the favorite in Udall. Sorry, all my other Udall people. We love you too. But yeah, I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it's just because my mom is a quilter, and so like I have a lot of experience with quilts, or if I've heard that figure of speech before, I'm not sure. But once I had it, and then when I was starting to write the book, and I was like, yeah, that would make some really cool illustrations, which it did. Like that whole like visual of our family coming together like a quilt was really fun. So, well, this was super fun. We'll have to do this another time again, but thank you guys so much for joining us, and for all of you that maybe are going to be watching this later on the YouTube. I just sound like an old person on the YouTubes. If you're watching this later on the YouTubes, if you're watching this later on YouTube, feel free to add any other questions, and we'll periodically check and answer those for you. But thank you all so much for your support. We couldn't be successful without you all, so thank you. Thanks.